Now, as Western troops prepare to leave Afghanistan, more light is shed on some of the turbulent and difficult events of the past decade in a new film due for release in the UK later this month. It's called Lone Survivor. It's based on a true story of a failed attempt by a team of US Navy SEALs to capture and kill the Taliban leader Ahmad Shah. The script is adapted from the first-hand account of Marcus Luttrell, and the film has dominated the US box office on its opening weekend.
I killed 20 Marines last week. 20. We let him go. 20 more will die next week. 40 more the week after that. Our job is to stop Shah. Why do these men have the right to dictate how we do our job?
Rules of engagement says we cannot touch them.
I understand. And I don't care. I care about you. I care about you. I care about you. I care about you.
We can't do
Look at
anything
that
for
soldier.
them. They are unarmed prisoners.
This is not a vote. This is what we're gonna do. This op is compromised. We're gonna cut them loose and we're gonna make this peak. When we make this peak, you're gonna get comms up. We're gonna call for extract and we're going home.
Roger that, sir.
Roger that. Roger.
One of the pivotal moments of the film there, and the director, Peter Berg, is with me, director of Lone Survivor. It's out in the UK on the 31st of January, Peter, just to make it quite clear. Thanks for coming in.
Pleasure.
Good to
Thanks
see you.
for having me.
Well, I'm lucky because I've seen it already, and it's a terrific watch. How did you go about adapting this? After all, it is a very, very difficult and tough account of a very difficult and failed expedition, really.
Yeah, so it started with me reading a book that Marcus Luttrell, who is the lone survivor, wrote. And when I threw my hat in the ring and asked to direct it, I told him I would learn as much as I could about the culture of Navy SEALs. I spent a year in the U.S. traveling and living with different SEAL platoons. And then about 3 years ago, I went to Iraq and was able to embed with a Navy SEAL platoon for 1 month up by the Syrian border. And by the time I came back from Iraq and had spent that time with the soldiers, I felt like I was ready to take it on.
How did you translate that experience in practical terms into the film?
Well, the Navy SEALs, like all special ops here in England, are a very unique crew, and they're very private, and it's not easy for them to crack that culture and for them to trust outsiders, particularly members of the media. So that time spent researching forged trust and friendship, and my time with Marcus Luttrell forged a lot of goodwill, and I was able to slowly start to write that script. And while we made the film, we had a group of Navy SEALs who were on the set with us every day, making sure we didn't mess it up, as they said. They used harsher words than that, but they made it clear to me that if we didn't get it right, they wouldn't be happy, and neither would the families of the 19 soldiers who were killed.
Some of the images we're showing now are basically images which really underline the strength of the community, the bond that exists between these men, which exists not just in terms of their operations, but elsewhere too, I mean, beyond that.
Yes, I mean, that was one of the reasons I wanted to make the film, and my experience reading Marcus Luttrell's book was to be able to divorce myself from the politics of the war, which is not easy to do. You know, every film about Iraq or Afghanistan tends to be, very polarizing, and if you're for it, you support the film. If not, you rip it apart. Marcus Luttrell's book kind of said, well, just put your personal views on whether we should ever have gone into Afghanistan aside, and just look at the quality of man that's out there, and what wonderful men these are, and how much love they have for each other, and what a strong brotherhood they have. And let's take some time out of our days, and let's turn off the TV, let's turn off the phones, and let's just acknowledge that we are countries, the U.S. and the UK, have been at war for quite some time. We've lost some wonderful men and women, and let's just pay tribute to the power of this brotherhood and what great men they are.
I mentioned the pivotal moment because there is a very important moment where they have a very strong, difficult moral dilemma, really. How to deal with, I don't want to spoil the film for people, how to deal with a situation which could involve death, could involve a different kind of option. They take an option which we can argue about later. How did you approach that? Were you under pressure from the men that you knew to kind of do that in a certain way?
Well, we don't want to give away what happened, but I mean, I think a lot of people know that the Navy SEALs were on an operation. They were up in the mountain, and they were discovered by some civilians. And they knew that if they let those civilians go, the civilians would alert an army, and there was a good chance it would be killed. So they had a very complicated decision to make, and I was under no pressure from anyone to do anything than sort of tell the facts, present the facts as Luttrell did. And it was a very confusing and tough decision for these men to make. There was a series of bad choices, and they had to try and figure out what the least bad was. And they actually, I think, made the most moral decision possible. And the price they paid was very, very severe. And that was one of the aspects of this story that I found so interesting.
I mentioned the success of this film in the States. Has it touched a chord with people? What are they seeing in this which says something not just to them, but about the American experience there in Afghanistan?
I think it has, and there was a lot of skepticism about Lone Survivor as a viable commercial product in my business in Hollywood. There's been a long history of very good films, starting with Hurt Locker, which won the Academy Award, which was not able to find a box office. So people were very clear and kind of quietly and gently prepared me for a film that wasn't going to perform well. And we opened to about $40 million 2 weeks ago, which was unheard of. And it was the first time I've seen my business pretty much walloped upside of the head and at a loss. And I have to say it felt very satisfying, because we felt that if there is a large audience out there that, again, regardless of how they feel about the politicians and about these conflicts, have nothing but support for these men and women who are willing to pay these prices and make this sacrifice. And we felt the movie was honoring them in a way that didn't feel like propaganda, that didn't feel like flag, flying and chest thumping, that was just a very straightforward look at these good men.
Because there'll inevitably be people watching today who will say very strongly to you, and in a very forthright way, it is in effect, despite what you say, kind of glorying warfare and glorying the kind of conflict that has been, as you say, hugely controversial. So how did you approach the production in a way which you think would answer that?
Well, I think that any honest look at war, is very hard to find a way to glorify war. War is horrible. War is hell. War is a vile, nasty, violent proposition. And for anyone to talk about glorifying that, I don't quite understand how you can glorify that. I think you can find glory in human character, in the spirit of these men. But people thinking that Lone Survivor, or arguing that Lone Survivor is somehow pro-war, which I've never met any human being that's actually pro-war, when 19 out of 20 men were killed, it's not the case. It's, if anything, a very honest look at the horrors of war and at the costs we pay when we decide to send our best and brightest young men and women into that kind of an environment.
Peter, once again, good to talk to you. Thank you very
Pleasure.
much. Just a reminder, the release in the UK on the 31st of January, and very interesting to talk to you. Thank you very much.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Peter Berg there.